Okay, so we just added this indicator color line, and so now we're going to implement it. We're going to go down to those, if we press the H key and manual motion is false, the last thing we want to do here is we want to change the indicator color to be 1 when we're in horizontal motion. When we're in vertical motion, we want to change that to be 2. And so let's just, again, I'm going to be lazy here. We're going to come up here. We're going to copy that. We're going to paste it, set it to 2. And likewise, we're going to come down here to the C. We're going to paste it, and we're going to set it to 3 there. Okay. So now let's come back up to this manual motion, or this continuous motion section, where if the manual motion is false, well, what do we really want to have happen? Well, what we want to have happen to start with is we want it to move, right? So we wanted to set it to, let's set the ball.xpos plus equals the ball.xvel, but this is, again, this is running 30 times a second, right? So we're going to be moving 30 times too fast here. If you're just adding 50 to that every 30 times a second, you're flying. So we want to divide that by our sim frame rate, right? And now we're only adding a 30th of the xvel for the ball on each frame. So after 1 second, it's done that 30 times, and we get the same value as if we just pushed the H button once in our manual mode. We're going to do the same thing for ball.ypos. We're going to add the ball.yvel divided by whatever our current frame rate happens to be. And likewise, we're going to add our y acceleration value, ball.y acceleration value, divided by how quickly we're moving the frames to our y velocity. And actually, let's go ahead and copy this. Let's put it on top. I like it better up there. We'll see why here in a little bit. It doesn't matter a whole lot. We're going to need to make a correction to something either way, and I like how the correction looks better when the y value, or y velocity, is up on top of the y acceleration. Okay, so this should, if we just run it now, I mean, it's not going to be drawing anything yet, but this should, if once we press the H key, it should start the ball moving. So if we hit the H key, the ball begins to move. And we have, again, right now we have no way of tracking this, but you can see it's moving all on its own. We don't have to press the H key anymore. And likewise, if we press the V key, that motion looks pretty good too. We don't have any way to check to see whether it's accurate or not, but it looks pretty good. The clock isn't running just yet. We'll work on that in a moment. And if we press the C key, we get what appears to be some combined motion. So things seem to be moving forward. Now let's start with drawing those spawn values, or I'm sorry, drawing those indicators. How will we go about drawing them without telling the computer when to draw them? We just want it to draw it once a second. How do we do that? Well, we know this loop is running 30 times every second, right? So why don't we have it check, has this loop ran 30 times, and if it has, draw one, and the next time it runs 30 times, draw another one. And so every 30 times this loop runs, we want it to draw one more indicator, because that's going to be 1 second. Okay, how are we going to do this? Well, let's come up here to our variables. We're going to need to add some more. And let's set one of these variables to, we'll call it spawn delay. Set that equal to 0. And we'll set another one, we'll call master spawn delay. And we'll set that equal to whatever our frame rate is. Okay? We don't have to understand what these do just yet. We will in just a moment. But for now, we'll make those. Spawn delay equals 0. Master spawn delay equals whatever our frame rate is. In this case, that'll equal 30. Okay, where was I? Where's our... Okay, under the manual motion. So now what we're going to do is we're going to come under this if manual motion thing. And we're going to say if spawn delay is equal to 0. Oh, and 2 equal signs. We're checking. If it's equal to 0, then what I want you to do is I want you to draw an indicator. And I'm just going to copy this from down here because we've already made that code. There's no reason to think through it all again. It's equal to 0. Draw an indicator. can see it tabbed in on me here. Yeah. Thought I could do it quick, but it's tedious regardless. Okay. Draw an indicator, and then when you're done drawing that indicator, I want you to set the spawn delay equal to whatever our master spawn delay is. You know, it just hit me that we probably don't even need the master spawn delay. We could probably just reset it to, why don't we do it that way? That seems like a much better way to, we're thinking on the fly here. This is how I did it the first time I did it. I'm catching a lot of things that aren't really necessary because I'm just setting this exactly equal to another variable I've already made, so let's just call it down there. Rather than reset it to the master spawn delay, let's just reset it to the frame rate. All right? So if it's 0, then it's going to make an indicator, and then it's going to set that to whatever, in this case 30, right? So now if it's greater than 0, we just want to subtract 1, right? We want to set the spawn delay minus equals, oops, 1. So every time it's not 0, we're going to subtract 1 from it. So if it's 29, we're going to make it 28. We're going to make it 27 on the next time around. We're going to make it 26. And so 30 times every second, it's going to run this. Eventually, it's going to hit 0. It's going to draw 1, and then it's going to reset it to 30, right? And then it's going to start over. And then 30 times later, we're going to hit 0 again. We're going to draw 1. We're going to make it. We're going to. You get the idea. Okay. So let's check to see what happens here. I think you'll find something pretty interesting happens. All right. So first of all, we're already drawing indicators, right? You can already see a little red dot there on the ball because all it cares about is whether or not the manual mode is off, and it is. So it's going away. It's drawing. We've already probably drawn a dozen of them there on top of that ball. And if I hit the vertical motion, we'll notice that the dots don't appear to line up at all with where they're supposed to. First of all, right? This should be at like 125. They're off by quite a bit here. And that's because we didn't start drawing, when we pressed the V key, that's not when we started drawing a dot, right? We started drawing a dot as soon as the frame opened. And so unless we push the V key at exactly a 1 second interval, you know, down to the millisecond, our dots are going to be off because we started drawing at the wrong time. So we don't want that. So if manual motion is false and our indicator color is greater than 0. Okay, so now it's not going to draw, it's not going to run this manual motion loop until we press a button, right? Because the indicator color starts at 0 to begin with, and after that, after we press a button, we change the number there. So okay, so now if we run it, notice that we don't have a red dot on the ball, so that's good. And now if we press the V key, 1 shows up immediately. And this 5th dot here, and it's the 6th one because now with the continuous motion we actually draw a dot at the 0 time second, which is fine. So at the 5th second mark, you'll notice that we're still kind of slightly off. I mean, just barely, right? It's supposed to be at 125 even. We're at 125 and a little bit of change. And this is because of the way the computer is calculating the position of the ball. Okay, so it's similar to the problem that we had in manual, although it's just a little more subtle. This YVEL line is running right before the changing of the Y position line, and it's adding. It's hard to exactly put words to it. It's adding a 30th of the velocity to the ball, when at the last moment there you should really only add a 60th. We're adding twice as much as we should. Now we could try and change this by taking this YVEL and moving it to the bottom of the list, but then you have the opposite problem. You're setting the position of the ball before you're adjusting the velocity, and so you actually get half a step behind. So the way that we need to correct for this, it's not all that attractive, but it's what needs to be done because we can't tell it to just do half when it draws an indicator. That wouldn't work because then you'd offset everything else. It'd be bad. So when we draw that indicator, why don't we set the Y position to the ball's Y position minus, what do we want? The ball dot YVEL divide by that sim FPS, and then we want to divide that whole number by 2. And I'm going to put 2 parentheses in there. Okay. So first of all, make sure, because I did that kind of in a weird order there, make sure that your code matches that right there. Okay. And then sit back and try and think about, because again, this is a difficult thing for me to explain about why we need this little correction to begin with. We are adding an entire, we're calculating a velocity that's actually slightly ahead of where it should be for when we calculate the position, because we're doing it right before. We can't do it simultaneously. We either need to do it right, because of the computer, we either have to do it right before we set the position or right after, and that means that you're set off just by a little bit. And this little correction right here will work for every single value that we get. So now if we run this again, we should see that it does end up, in fact, right on the 125 mark. Okay, so now we have that perfect value that we wanted, and this, again, it works for every single value. That little fudge correction has to happen in there because of the way the computer is calculating the. Okay, and so everything else. So now if we press the H key, oh, we didn't reset we messed that up. Because we didn't reset the spawn delay when we pressed the H key, it started drawing dots at a weird time, didn't it? So we need to fix that. That'll be the last thing we do in this video. I'm glad I caught that. When we press the V key, or the H key, and manual motion is false, the first thing we should do is we should reset the spawn delay back to 0, because it might not necessarily be there if we've pressed another key before that. And likewise, we're going to do that with our V key, and we're going to do that with our C key. Okay. And so now, no matter how much time has passed, once we press the H key after a little while here, it should start drawing our dots right at the very moment that we press the key. Right? And so you can see here we have, ooh, okay, something still interesting. You look at the position there. Still got something weird going on there. I'll have to think about that. We'll address that in the next video. This one's already getting a little long, so we'll address this problem in the next video. Oh, and look, we've caught up. This could be interesting. All right.